and it's my perspective, dealing with psychology, is that people, when they have traumatic experiences, they're exposed to billions of bits of information per second coming into their brain. But when you're in a normal state of mind, calm, relaxed, those experiences, the billions of inputs on your synapses every second, become filtered out. But when you're in a high state of anxiety and you all of a sudden realize, I gotta rely on all my impulses, you accept more information come in. So it's not being comfortable in life that makes these experiences more accessible to your natural income of information. That would be mine. Plus your DNA. Your DNA is loaded with ghosts. Everyone that ever lived before you is in your DNA. We are walking libraries of ghosts, our predecessors. Good morning. I'm Jack Mickle, and I'm one of the local historians for Globe Miami area. Here's Kenny. He's one of our curators in the program. If you have questions, he's the one to answer. One of our people I just noticed is Al Sieber, and he was the one that captured the Apache Kid. Here is one of the best places I like to be. It has to do with the real Salado Indians. The Salados were an Indian group that lived here between 800 and 1400 AD. They were part of the Pueblo group, and they left here about 1420. But as you see their baskets, we have a great museum, the Besh-Ba-Gowah program, where they actually lived.
This was today what Besh is with the ruins in the museum. And over to your right is what it was supposed to look like.
You guys don't know what it did look like, or is it
I
just
mean,
no records?
we do, but there's not really a lot of documentation.
So why are there no paintings or images of the Salado Indians?
That is a mystery, as far as I know. There's still a lot we don't know. The Salado culture is still kind of, what's the word? It's all up for speculation at this point because there's not a lot of collection over time.
Is there any artifacts here from the Salados?
Yes, everything in this museum was found here at this site.
Here's what I'm curious about, and I want to get to where we are in a minute, but I was just thinking, like, when we're in town, like, all the ghosts seem to be white people.
Sure.
I mean, others, but there's a lot of white people. And there's a lot of Native American blood spilled in this area. And I've yet to hear about a lot of Indian ghosts or Native ghosts.
Well, you probably wouldn't, because the Native Americans kept their distance from Globe. In the 1800s, the whites that came to this area for mining didn't have an affinity for the Native Americans that came before because they were too close to the 1800s, where there was a lot of deprivations on both sides. So since there was no Native American presence in Globe, they were all out in the hills where we are at right now. You're not going to find Native American ghosts in a settlement that's Arizona miners.
So where are we here, though? What is this?
Well, this is Besh-Ba-Gowah. This area was discovered in 1880s by a traveler, a person from the Smithsonian Institute. Back then they didn't have a name for it, but she knew Native American language. And so it's a coin taken from the Apache Indians. And Besh-Ba-Gowah means birthplace of metal. And that was because the pioneers had come into this area and found copper, found gold and silver at first.
But this wasn't built by the Apaches because they're nomads.
That's correct. The Apache came in probably 200 years after they had already left this area, maybe even 300 years later.
And who built this?
Well, this was built by the Salado.
Salado.
The Salado came after the Huhucam and the Pueblos. The Salado, they basically got their name from us, the newcomers, because they seem to have lived along the Salado River. Well, this place closed down significantly in about 1400.
Okay.
And so we had a period of 350 years of desolation here. There was nothing going on. The conquistadors during the 1700s came up and through this area on their way to the Grand Canyon looking for the seven cities of Cibola.
Right.
And so they had transpired and gone through this area. But they had seen the ancient ruins and they didn't think anything about it because they were looking for gold. Well, in the late 1700s, early 1800s, the Apache, who are a nomadic tribe, the Apache had already made a presence here because they were raiding the whole area. This is cultural. This
Right.
isn't something evil.
No,
this
it's-
is
it's-
cultural.
it's-
When the whites came in, the miners came in, and the Hispanics came in from the conquistadors, the Apaches now were trying to claim this area for Apacheria, Apache land. And in that effort to claim it, they went up against the Mexican armies first, Los Federales. And then when the whites came in, they came in problems with the U.S. Army. And with the town of Globe forming in the late 1879, culture started coming in, shops started coming in, and of course the Apache were upset because they were on the reservation starving because their lands had been taken from them, and they didn't like living in enclosures. Geronimo once said, I remember when there were no enclosures, that you could go from one part of the country to another without ever seeing a fence. Meanwhile, Globe became prosperous because of the gold and silver. When the silver ran out, they discovered copper because electricity had just started. Globe had a reputation at the time. Tombstone was really had their heyday in the 1880s. We were already well into our heyday in the 1870s. Tombstone had, not to take anything away from it, but they had 20 seconds of history. It's called the shootout at the OK Corral between the Earps and the Clantons. Even though we had Clantons here in town here, our time period for rough and tumble started in the 1860s to the 1900s. Geronimo was invading the area. Mangus, Colorado was. The Apache Kid, which is a very interesting story, was from this area. He was tried in the courthouse across the street. It's a fabulous story just talking about the stage robberies, the Wells Fargo robberies, the hanging tree we had downtown. This was going on for 25 years before 1900. So we had gotten all of our exuberance out in those early years. And like I said, the women that moved into the territory and became more or less the caretakers of the men, because the men were hardworking, hard-drinking miners. And that's all they had ever known. That's all they'd ever, but the women basically civilized the town. So it became a little bit more compatible. Tombstone, 20 seconds, Globe, 20 years.